things are starting to heat up now. The pieces are in motion. So episode 3 of House of the Dragon is out, and things are starting to pick up. Things are starting to move into place, but we're still not quite at the start of the war. The pieces are being pushed around. The schemes are being set up still. The plans are still being moved into place, but we're still not quite at the start of the high-intensity battles, the high-intensity dragons. We're not there yet. So we're still another slow episode, but not as slow as the first two. The first two were really that slow burn. We are really going to have to hit you emotionally, but this one kind of picks up, brings back the emotionality, just a little bit of it, but it kept the pace moving. And I like that about this episode. Things were moving. Things didn't really set back and like really have you stew in the emotion of things, because we're past that. We've moved past that, and it's fantastic. But that opening scene of episode 3 was not something I expected. You have the opening scene with these two families, I'll put them here, talking shit, and then one of them comes up and starts talking shit to the other one, and they end up getting into a big massive battle. Now apparently these two families constantly fight each other no matter what. It says it multiple times throughout the episode. These two families need no excuse to go at it, but their decisions to join Rhaenyra and join Team Green, that just catalysted over big battle. Two young bucks just talking a bunch of shit to each other led to a whole massacre, and I was not really expecting that opening scene. You know, when one of them straight up says, "You wouldn't dare," after having a sword drawn on him, I genuinely was like, oh, you know, they're probably gonna throw down for a little bit and whatever. No, next scene is not just are they dead, the whole country, the whole land that they're at is just completely wiped out and gone. It's like, Jesus Christ. So that's one hell of a way to start off. But again, they say these two families go at it anyway, so the war hasn't started yet. But clearly people who agree with Rhaenyra and those that agree with Aegon clearly don't have any issue with starting up fights with each other anyway. So we move past that, and we are officially now dealing with Rhaenyra. We see Rhaenyra bury the two twins, and there she's sad about this. She's like, man, I don't know what we're doing. How are we going to get past all this? How are we going to... This is unnecessary and all of that. And inevitably, she does read the letter from Team Green, from Alicent, after all this time, after talking with Rhaenys, and maybe thinking, she's like, you know, maybe Alicent doesn't want a war. Like, I don't want a war, because you're hearing her council talk about all this stuff, and it's clear that Rhaenyra does not want a war. She just wants things to go over. She wants her throne back, and she wants things to not escalate to the way they were. But her council's like, nah, we gotta go to war. But luckily, she's keeping a level head on her shoulders, and she's taking a lot of information from Rhaenys, which is a good thing, because I think that's helped her the most. And so good on Rhaenyra for definitely sticking true to herself and not just jumping balls into the wall trying to start a conflict. She's really thinking this through. Unfortunately, her brother, on the other hand, Aegon, batshit loony individual. This dude's like, what? These two countries has been at it? I don't care. They started bloodshed? Good. We need war. He wants war, so we can tell where this one's going at that. And we see old Kristen Cole here finally taking his role as Hand of the King. Who the hell told this man this haircut was a good choice? Who told Kristen Cole that haircut was a good choice? Because that is just the worst haircut I've ever seen. Good God, man, please go back to your barber, get a fade, just shave it off something, because that haircut does him no justice. But you can definitely tell that his men don't really take him serious anymore, and it seems like some of them might have found out that he's been hooking up with the queen, so their respect for him is gone. Their respect for his authority is gone, and no one at the council even really takes his word as the hand besides Aegon, which I'm not too surprised. Aegon is a full-fledged moron anyway, so I'm not too entirely surprised by that. But then we do get a scene a little bit later on when they've established that they're going to march out, they're going to leave, they're going to go to all these different lands to set up an authority. And we have Alicent introduce her, I think it was her cousin, Sir Gawain. I'll put it up there again. Definitely a name that reminds me of the King Arthur's court, and this just tickles old Christy, because he's like, whoa, wait a minute. Because this is a guy that definitely isn't phased by Cole being the hand. This is a guy that's not impressed with him being the hand. He doesn't care. He doesn't care one bit. And it's really funny because it bothers Kristen Cole wholeheartedly. And then you have this whole scene with them playing out where Kristen Cole's asking for Allison's endearment and stuff like that, and she's like, yeah, go on night, be safe, blah 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 blah, and he's like, oh, thank you. It was a super awkward scene, honestly, because it reminded me of the scene back in the first season when he asks for the stuff with Rhaenyra and Alicent when they're in the booth watching him do the turning. I'll have to look it up. It's the same thing, but clear Alicent didn't really care for it, and she's just like, okay, yeah, here, be safe, night, do whatever you gotta do. And it's just, Kristen Cole at this point is just, no one's giving a shit about Kristen Cole at this point. And it's good, because Kristen Cole is a piece of shit, and he doesn't deserve anything from anyone. No one should respect this man. This man is just a failure and a whiny ass little bitch that and is just petty and has the mind of a 15-year-old little girl. Really, he does. He holding on to grudges for no reason, sets up everything for no reason, tries to create chaos for no reason. This guy, Otto was right, and I bet you Otto was just so furious that this is the man that's now the hand, and it's definitely going to cause things to fall apart. But Otto was right. Now, let's talk about Daemon. Daemon has kind of been off on his own since the first episode, and he goes over to Harrenhal to take the lands and have them swear fealty to Rhaenyra. And I mean, they do. They won't even really question it. He shows up. You see a couple knights running because there's a dragon. He lands and he starts walking through the castle, and like no one's there. And he finally comes across one guard, knocks him out, runs into the banquet hall, and the guy in charge straight up was like, "Oh, hello. What can we do for you?" And he's like, "You swear fealty for Rhaenyra, swear capture this." Okay, sure, okay. And he goes and swears fealty to Rhaenyra and all of them, and it's like, "Wow, that was really easy." And he's like, "Come sit, eat with us." And they're like, "Okay, sure, that's right." So you have Daemon sitting down there talking with them, and they getting all this information, getting all the stuff out that he needs to hear. And he's like, "You know your castle has been definitely in a state of disrepair, but we can work together and bring it back into a state of repair." And the Lord's like, "Yeah, it's been in like this since your ancestor burned it to the ground." Well, set it ablaze, more likely. More like, so he's like, "Yeah, we just kind of live like this. But okay, sure. All right, look, man, we're not disagreeing. We swear fealty to Rhaenyra. Don't worry, we're good. We're good. Eat, have some food." And he's like, "I don't know about this." Damon's like, "Yeah, I don't know. You're not trying to poison." He's like, "Yeah, we're not trying to poison you, dude. Just eat your food." This man really just wanted to have his meal, and Daemon interrupted. So he's like, "I'm gonna go back to my meal. Just sit down and join me." They have their conversation. They start talking about Hopfoot, and they're like, "Yeah, well, he's your family too. How can I trust you?" And the Lord's like, "Dude, we put no trust in him. He is not someone we put any respect, put any trust to. Yeah, we don't swear fealty to this guy. We don't put any respect to this. You got nothing to worry about." And I believe him. It's Game of Thrones. It could be lying, but I genuinely believe that he does not care at all about this relative of theirs that works in the castle. He doesn't care. And I believe him. So after dinner, you have Daemon back off doing his thing. He's sitting in his room, and he hears someone basically try to break into his door. And so he walks out there with his sword, takes his sword, walks out there, and he ends up in this dream state. At least it seems like he doesn't realize it's a dream state at first, and he hears humming. So he follows the humming into a room, and I noticed it when he first walked in. The girl sitting there had the typical white, blonde Targaryen hair, and I was like, so is this just another person? Because again, I haven't read the books, and I don't even know if the scene is in the books. But as he walks up and it turns, it's the actress that played young Rhaenyra, back in the shot, and she's basically saying, well, I'm always having to clean up your messes. Everything you do has other people have to fix what you start. And you see her sewing the head of Jaehaerys, the baby from the first episode, and that's just creepy. I know it's a doll and everything, but that is just a terrible shot. Not like terrible in the sense of like directive, like terrible when you're looking and you're like, oh my god, this is just, ooh. Can you imagine? Like, just put that in a real perspective. Take the brain away from the fact that that's a doll and pretend that's a real person, and you're having, oh god, she's really, I don't know. She's throwing the head back on, and she's like, Daemon, you do all this stuff out of your own emotions and your own rage, and we have to clean up your mess. We always have to clean up your mess. Me, my father, etc., etc. And come to find out, it was just a dream. It was just a dream. This hypnotic state that Daemon found himself in. And when he comes back to, he's standing in front of this large tree, and he's super confused as to what's happening. He's like, what the hell am I doing out here? Why am I outside? I was just in the castle. I am now in the courtyard, basically. And he turns around, and this young lady is standing here, and apparently her name is Alice. I don't really know for sure. I had to look up who she was, but apparently that's her name, Alice. And she just simply says, you're gonna die here. And then she walks off. She walks off, and it's like, what is going on? So I'm personally left going, is this part of the books? And if it is, I'm kind of curious to see where it leads. And if it's not part of the books, what are they trying to set up right here? Someone else has ability to kind of like see into the future. Was Daemon in this dream state because he was a Targaryen, or was someone else causing him to go into this dream state? Like something, was it that girl Alice that made him go into that dream state? I don't know. More questions, and I think that's a good setup moving forward. But again, I don't know if it's in the books or not. I don't want to be known if it's in the books, but big Game of Thrones fans, if that whole setup with him seeing the daydream is in the books, just let me know if it's in the books or not. You don't have to go into any other detail. Just want to know if it's in the books or not. So, Daemon seems like he's kind of losing his mind. And so, we'll see if this helps him bring his ass back to Rhaenyra, or does he just go into a bigger descent because of this? Now, back to old Crispy Cole here and Sir Gawain. I know I'm saying his name wrong. It's probably not Gawain. They're out on the march. They're going through, and they're in this giant open field. And Gawain and his little group are marching off. They don't care. Kristen's riding up on it. He's like, yo, wait a minute. Hold up. Where are you going? He's like, I'm going to the local town. He's like, why are you going to the local town? Camp set back over here. And he's like, I'm not going to lay on the ground when a good inn is acceptable over here. No. And so they get into a big argument about who's going, and I'll do whatever you want. I'll do whatever I want to do, and I'll meet you and the guys in the morning. Don't you worry. We'll be there with you. We're not going to leave you. And while they're arguing, they are spotted in the sky. Well, actually, Kristen Cole takes note of like, oh wow, we're like really in the open. And then he looks up and he's looking at the clouds, and he's like, something feels off. He gets this little gut feeling, whatever. And sure enough, it's on a dragon. Why am I just drawing a blank on their names? Oh my god, I'm terrible at this. I'm just drawing a blank on these names. I'll put it up on the. She notices them on the ground, and she's pretty much been like kept back at the castle because Rhaenyra asked her to. So she's out scouting, and it was more so of a scouting mission, less versus, she just was sent out to scout really. And she notices it. She knows that there's people down, so she swoops down. Kristen Cole says, oh my god, there's a dragon, run! So they take off running into the forest. She gets down super close to him and almost actually got pretty close to catching him. It kind of would have been funny to see if she did catch him. But she flies over the top of the city. Not the city. She flies over the top of the forest where they're at, and inevitably she's like, okay, I can't see them, they're not moving. All right, I'm getting out of here. But she knows who it is. She saw that it was Kristen Cole. She saw that he had a large army basically following him. And she goes back and she tells Rhaenyra, and they're like, oh, good eyesight, girl. The council for Rhaenyra is like, oh, good eyesight. She's like, oh, it's not just because I had good eyesight. I got close enough to tell. And Rhaenyra's like, "Ooh, wait a minute. Did you have to get that close?" She's like, "I got that close." She was confident with it, and good on you, girl. Like, yeah, she did her job. She has a dragon. She knew, given the situation, the guys, the knights, or the Kristen Cole and them didn't have a way of really defeating the dragon anyway. So she basically put the fear of God in them, and good on them, because when they were sitting in the forest, they were petrified. They're like, "Oh my God." You know, Allison's cousin's freaking out. He's like, "Oh my God, there's a dragon." And Kristen Cole's like, "All right, now we're going to shut the fuck up. You're going to stop being a little petty shit. Stop being a little hoity-toity rich boy. You're going to stay at camp with us. We're going to move at night under the cover of darkness through the trees." And he's like, "Oh." Like, I didn't want them. This moment just gave Kristen Cole that authority that I don't think he deserves, but it was nice to see him terrified, and good to see him basically almost shit himself. So that was good to see. Rhaenyra also in this episode sent her daughter, or her adoptive daughter, Daemon's daughter from his former wife. She, not the older one, the younger one. Again, I'll put her name. It's Baela? I think it's Baela. Her name's Baela, I believe. That one. She sent her off, and at first she doesn't want to go. She's like, "I'm being sent away. I'm only being sent away because I don't have a dragon, etc., etc." And she's like, "No, that's not what it is. I just want to be able to keep you safe." And I think she sends her sons with her too. Either both of them or the youngest. I think maybe the youngest one. And as she's sending them off, she's like, "It's really important that why I'm doing this with you and why I'm asking you to do this," because she shows her there's 4 dragon eggs she's sending with. She's like, "I need you to protect these eggs." So will these 4 eggs come into play in this season? Probably not. Are these 4 eggs gonna be the setup for Dany's children? I don't know that either. I don't know which eggs these dragons gonna become. I don't know if these are the eggs that managed to make their way to Daenerys. I don't know. But that's why she's sending her daughter off to basically get these eggs out of the castle, out of the grounds, out of away from the Greens, and to protect them. And when she shows Baela the eggs, Baela's a little more good with the idea of being sent off and being sent there, because she's like, "Oh, I'm being used to protect them." Okay. I can live with that. And the final scene of this episode, so that was a good moment for her as well. The acting all throughout this episode is fantastic, by the way. So this is how you're doing a show. And for anybody that, by the way, before I get to the last scene with Rhaenyra and Alicent, great way to end the episode, by the way, in my opinion. Little goofy, a little comedic, but I think it was a great way to end the episode. Before I move forward with that, I just want to say, for those that have been watching and have your complaints about, say, like stuff like The Acolyte from Star Wars and other shows where there's female leads, and I hear this a lot with Star Wars. The Star Wars fandom is like split into 2, and you always have those defenders that say the only reason why people hate Star Wars is because Disney's been pushing female leads, and you just don't like females, and you just don't like strong females. And no, that's not the case. And we're not going to get into this because this is not a Star Wars fair, but most people who are watching both anything Star Wars related from Disney lately and this show are praising this show, because the writing for these characters is extremely well done, and they made all of them likable in the right way, not likable in the right way. And people are looking forward to seeing what Rhaenyra and Alicent do. People don't like Alicent because she's a woman. People don't like Alicent because she basically stabbed Rhaenyra in the back. She basically called her out for all this stuff, and then as soon as she married Rhaenyra's dad, she just flipped on her and was like, screw you, Rhaenyra. So no, these are well-written, fantastic female characters that are being handled and directed correctly and being acted correctly. This is how you do it. People don't have a beef with strong female leads. People don't have a beef with female-led stories. This is an entirely female-led story. It's how you write them and how you have them directed out. House of the Dragon is a prime example of how you take leading female characters and do them correctly, and people will like it if your story's good, your acting's good, your characters are good, and you do everything right. Stop pandering and just tell us a good story. House of the Dragon is just nailing it. They've been nailing it since season 1. They've been nailing it with this one. This is how you do it. Now, the last scene of episode 3, you have, almost forgot this part, had to re-record it and put it back in. We have the scene in the pub with this guy talking to his friends. This guy's pretty much well known in the little pub thing, but he sits there talking. He's like, I'm actually the brother to Daemon and Viserys, and they're like, yeah, whatever. And then you get one for like, oh, look at his hair, blah blah blah. And he's like, nephew this, nephew this. And as soon as all this stuff goes in, Aegon comes into, and they're like, well, there's your other nephew right there. Might as well go chat him up right now. This whole scene with Aegon, where it plays out in the pub and then leads into the brothel, it sets up this dynamic. It shows further into the dynamic of Aegon with his brother Aemon, and I'll get to that. But the reason why Aegon is ending up in this pub is because he put on the suit of Aegon the Conqueror. He's like, I'm gonna go off into battle and all this stuff. And then Viserys, I think his name is Clubfoot here, who, by the way, the people that Daemon's talking to, this is who they're referring to. He gives him whispers, and it basically finds a way of talking Aegon out of flying out with Kristen Cole and all of them. So he decides he's going to stay, goes with the knights to the pub because they have a squire that they're like, let's make him a man. Let's make him a man. So they take him a pub, gonna get him drunk. They're going to take him to a brothel, all that stuff. That's why Aegon's there. Book readers, if this guy is actually of any importance and is actually somewhat related to Daemon and Viserys, let me know. If it's just a throwaway character that they put in the show just for shits and giggles, then just say it was a character they threw in there for shits and giggles. I don't see it going anywhere. I just thought it was a weird moment they decided to add in there, because why? I don't know. For me, why? It's not even a super funny gag. It's not even like a funny gag. It's just, huh? Why? But yeah, this guy's claiming to be the brother, Viserys and Daemon. Okay. Yeah. I don't believe it, but at this point, I don't know. They introduced Daeron last episode out of freaking nowhere. So, this one I wouldn't even be surprised. But Aegon's going through and he's pulling back the curtains. And he finds the girl he's looking for, but then finds her with his brother Aemon. And she's just curled up, laying in bed with Aemon. He's curled up, laying down, just napping. And Aegon starts making fun of Aemon. Starts ragging on him, dogging on him. He's like, you take her like a dog. All this stuff. And being the piece of shit older brother that he actually is. Truly the piece of shit older brother that he is. Aemon ends up playing it real cool, playing it off. Balls on this kid, by the way, too, this actor. He stands up and we get a full shot of him. I'm not showing that, but gets a full shot of him. So, all the ladies, if you're into that, there you go. And he walks off and he's like, a whore's a whore, have at her, and walks off. And you can see the discomfort on her face. That definitely hurt her. It did. But she could tell that he also was hurt because of what Aegon was saying and what Aegon was doing to Aemon. So this scene definitely wanted us to see that Aegon is still this terrible piece of shit to his brother, even though his brother's doing what he can to be useful and helpful to his brother. And to be quite honest, if Aemon didn't have Vhagar, Aegon probably wouldn't give two shits about Aemon in the first place. And it's solely because he has Vhagar. And it's just sad. It's just sad because when you look at Rhaenyra's two older boys, Lucerys and Jacaerys, I swear I'll get his name right at some point. I think it's Jacaerys. Lucerys and Jacaerys. You could tell that they were much better as brothers. They actually loved each other, respected each other, always wanted to have each other by their sides and do stuff. They acted like real brothers. Aegon and Aemon are just... That's not a brotherhood. They're not friendly with each other. They're solely seeing each other as people that they can use. And it's sad. It's sad. And you see the vulnerability with Aemon a lot. I heard in the books that he didn't even care that he murdered his nephew. Murdered his nephew. He didn't care. But in the show, they're showing that remorsefulness from him. Saying like, he didn't... You get it from the first two episodes. He was like, I didn't want this to happen. I can't believe this happened. Stuff, etc., etc. Point being, there's the show and the difference between the books and the show on this, and you can see this vulnerability with Aemon, and Aegon is just a total piece of crap. I fell for Aemon in this scene. This whole scene was wild to tell too, by the way. So Rhaenyra wanting to see Alicent. So she asks, someone said her name's, I don't remember what the name they gave her. This girl. She said, hey, you know your way around the keep. You know your way in. I want to get in. I don't think that's good for you, your queen, my highness, your highness. No, I got to do this. I have to do this. I mean, I can get a message to, no. I have to do this. I have to do this. So she gets Rhaenyra into the castle. She's like, oh, you can take fishing boats. People don't really care. And especially if you don't dress like a queen, people aren't going to look for you. Like, people aren't. It's just people. And she's right. And just kind of reminded me of people saying this stuff about New York. People in New York, people always say that people in New York never really pay attention to anything going on around them. This scene kind of reminded me of those statements. She's walking through. She's got the headdress on of a church individual. Got it on. I mean, of course, no one can see her hair, which is a big thing. But she was right. No one even paid her 2 mind. She's put this on and she's kept walking. I will agree that some people are like, I will say that, and she made it just too. Hold on, I'm sorry. Her with, I'm not sure which guy she's with, but clearly he's there with her. They make their way to the cathedral. They see Alicent go up in there. Rhaenyra goes up in there, and inevitably she sits with Rhaenyra at the table of all the candles, and they start having their conversation. Before I continue that conversation, people complained that Alicent not being guarded the whole time is dumb. People complaining that it's so easy to sneak into the city, saying it's dumb. It's not. This is a massively large castle, like kingdom land area, and the castle grounds itself is further up in the middle. So everything around is basically the common folk, the simple folk, and the knights, especially the white cloaks. They're not at every little port. They're not at every little thing. They're not at every little nook and cranny. This happens all the time in medieval stuff. It makes perfect sense for people to be able to sneak into King's Landing because the guards just can't be on top of everything, and you have a ton of people. Like, again, think of New York. People can drive into New York and move through New York, and most people aren't even going to notice them. Not even the cops, because there's just so much going on. There's so many things, people happening. This makes perfect sense for Rhaenyra and Daemon to sneak in because they're not drawing attention to themselves, and things are just happening. Things are moving, especially during the day. She didn't show up on a big, massive charter boat. She showed up on a small fishing boat. The guards are just going to see fishing people and a girl in a church getup. They're not even think about it, right? So them being able to make their way into the King's Landing and then up to the cathedral makes perfect sense. Also, the cathedral is a holy ground. Y'all need to watch more medieval stuff. Cathedrals are considered a holy ground, so people go to cathedrals to pray and to seek forgiveness and speak to all, the preachers and whatnot. The guards aren't supposed to follow them in, or at least come up to the door and not be welcomed in, because cathedrals are sanctuary. Cathedrals are the safe space. Cathedrals are a place where everyone, unless you're basically a barbarian, you're not attacking people in the cathedral. It's a holy spot. It's like this in most medieval stuff. That's why there's a lot of scenes in medieval stories where people will meet the person they're trying to deal with in the cathedral. You take things of like, if you take, stories with like Robin Hood. If Robin Hood's got to see someone, or he wants to mess with the sheriff, he'll meet him in the church because he knows the sheriff isn't going to do anything in the church. And then the sheriff knows that he's not going to do anything in the church because the church is that sacred ground. The cathedral is basically that sacred ground. No one's going to do anything. So yeah, it makes perfect sense. So I understand the complaint that you're like, how in the heck do you manage to... Anyone could go kill Rhaenyra if she's in the cathedral, not Rhaenyra, Alicent if she's in the cathedral. Yes, you could, if you know how to get into the cathedral without drawing attention. Here's the thing. Most people wouldn't likely think of killing someone in a cathedral. That's why it's set up the way it is. I understand the complaint, but just know that when it comes to cathedrals and the medieval era type of stuff, churches are viewed as the safe space. So this makes perfect sense. Anyway, now Rhaenyra and Alicent sit down, they start talking. Alicent's like, Rhaenyra's like, I want to avoid a war. I know you want to avoid a war. This is so stupid. Just took my name, my crown, blah, blah. They're going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And finally, Alicent goes, your father said Aegon's name. What? Your father said Aegon's name right before he passed. And Rhaenyra's like, I find that really hard to believe because I saw him just a few hours before that. and never even remotely mentioned Aegon or nothing. So you just tell me that right before he died, he just mentioned Aegon. And I was like, oh, he did. Absolutely did. I don't know what you want me to say, but he did. He said, Aegon, the prince to come, blah, blah, blah. There's the prince to come. And as soon as Rhaenyra hears, she goes, wait, that's what my dad said. My dad specifically said, Aegon, the prince that was promised. And Alicent's like, yes, that's exactly what he said. And Rhaenyra's like, oh my God, that's a story that he's told. It's about Aegon the Conqueror. Not, oh. And you can just see it in Alicent's face where she's like, oh my God, oh my God. And like, you can see it in her face. She's like, oh my God. Because if you can think if Rhaenyra was just trying to pull her strings, Rhaenyra would have reacted differently. But Rhaenyra didn't react to the name Aegon. She reacted to when Alicent said the prince that was promised. As soon as she said that, that's when Rhaenyra was like, that's not about my brother. That's not about, it's about Aegon the Conqueror. This whole thing got started because you misunderstood what my dad was talking about, because he was just randomly talking about the story of the prince that was promised, Aegon the Conqueror. Of course, we know that, at least I think, again, I don't read the books, Aegon, the prince that was promised, that's referring to Jon Snow. Game of Thrones fans, let me know. Isn't that referring to Jon Snow, basically? Because isn't his name Aegon as well? He's the prince that was promised. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Game of Thrones fans, but isn't the song of Ice and Fire, the prince was promised, that's about Jon Snow, Aegon, not Aegon the Conqueror. But again, it makes sense that Rhaenyra thinks that it's about Aegon, because this is set basically almost 200 years before Game of Thrones anyway. So it makes sense that she's like, it's about Aegon the Conqueror. Oh my God, you started this whole war. People have died. My son has died. Your son has died. Oh, she didn't say that, but it's like, that's Rhaenyra's attitude. And she's like, people have died and you're willing to start a war and you're willing to go to this. You usurped my throne all because you mistook a story and immediately accused it of being your son. I saw a skit on TikTok where someone brought it up. And yeah, 100% it's Alicent's fault on this, because the Targaryens are known to name kids Aegon. A boy at some point in the family of everybody that has kids is named Aegon. Rhaenyra has an Aegon. Alicent has an Aegon. There's like Aegons before them, Aegons and before them, all the way back to Aegon the Conqueror. Like, this family loves to use the name Aegon. So Alicent just hearing that and assuming that what it was, it's funny because, yeah. And she used to chastise Rhaenyra when they were kids for not reading the histories and reading the life of the Targaryens. And here she is completely messing it up on herself because she didn't want to pay attention or even use any type of critical thinking. But Rhaenyra's trying to call her out for it, and she doesn't back down. Ellen's like, it's set in motion. We're not backing down. Nope, things are going the way they are. And it's like, God. Alicent. So the episode ends with Rhaenyra like, this bitch. And she's right. Honestly, things that have happened are 100% on Alicent, because she mistook what Viserys said, and then she created this whole conflict because of what Viserys said. She usurped Rhaenyra's throne because of something she mistook of what Viserys said. Yeah, everything up to this point's kind of been on Alicent and Otto. Now, Otto was going to set his family to be in the throne no matter what. That's why he had his daughter marry the king. Sick bastard. But Alicent should have known better. Should have thought a little bit better. But hey, we are where we are now. So episode 3 is done. I loved episode 3. I'm loving where things are going. I'm loving the direction things are going. It's good to see that Alicent's pretty much been called out on her bullshit, and Rhaenyra's like, this whole crap started because you weren't listening to my dad when he said something. You just heard a name and ran with it instead of thinking and using your brain. I cannot wait to see what Rhaenyra decides to do moving forward in episode 4. I can't wait to see how they play this stuff out. Alicent, you big old big dummy. Your grandson died because of your stupidity. Rhaenyra's son died because of your stupidity. It's a war that's about to go down because of your stupidity and refusal to step down. Again, if you're Team Green, how can you be Team Green after just these 3 episodes? How? Just how? Leave the comments. How can you still be Team Green after all of this? You can like Alicent as a person, sure, but she's an idiot, grade A idiot that is just wants power. You can just tell. If she didn't want power, she'd be like, oh, maybe I should find a way to have my son step down. But nope, she's like, oh, we're all in, steam rolling, let's go. Boop, boop. She jumped on that train. If you're Team Green, seriously, how are you Team Green? I want to know. How are you Team Green? Oh, and one last thing. Fuck Kristen Cole. Cannot wait for his death.